I'm Mr. Grinler.
And I'm Mrs. Grinler.
And this is Grinler's Creatures. And welcome back to another episode of Grinler's Creatures. But for today, Charlotte's at work, so I thought I'd have a little browse around the enclosures, have a look at what water dishes need topping up, you know, if a tarantula needs feeding. And yeah, I came across something. So today's video is going to be a little different. I'm going to be talking and showing you a little bit of footage. So Charlotte went to work this morning, and while she was at work, I came into the spider room like I do every day and have a look at the tarantulas. You know, no matter what, if I go to work, I always come in beforehand, have a look at them. Or, you know, if Charlotte's going, then I'm like, right, I'm going to pop in here, have a look at everything, make sure everything's all right. So whilst browsing the tanks, I came across the grammostola concepcion tank. And you know what, there's not actually much information about these. But anyway, before I get sidetracked, I noticed that there was a molt within the enclosure. And you guys might be thinking, that is great that it's molted. And it is great that it's molted. But there's some things I want to tell you about this spider. This tarantula hasn't eaten in about a year. And that sort of brings us onto this video. Because I always get asked the question, why has my tarantula not eaten in so long? And it's a question I get asked quite a lot. And it worries a lot of keepers, especially new keepers if I'm honest. So we're going to cover a few different points in today's video. All to do with molting and eating. So let's talk about the history of this grammostola concepcion, along with my experience so far with her. So you can see her just inside here, and you can actually see the molt right beside her as well. And she was actually stretched out just here earlier, and I'm gutted I didn't pick up the camera and record it, because it would have been absolutely awesome to show you. So I've had her for about a year, and since then, she hasn't fed once. She has always rejected any food I've offered her. Like, I still remember doing the actual video for this girl, and I remember I tried to do a little update on it. I think it was about a few weeks after I actually recorded the initial rehouse. We tried to feed her, and I think it was a red runner, and she refused it. And since then, she hasn't accepted food once. And that's why I've not showed her on this channel since then. And don't get me wrong, I've tried to record feeding videos. She's just rejected, rejected, rejected. And that brings us back to the question that always gets asked. You know, my tarantulas won't eat. It's been weeks, it's been months. For some people, it's even been a year. So firstly, tarantulas will always stop eating before a molt. I've had spiderlings that have stopped eating, and a couple days later, bam, they've molted. Let's take this lid off. A sign of not eating is usually a big indicator that they're about to molt, and usually it is the answer, but sometimes it's not. But we'll get into that very soon. So they also give other signs when they're going to pre-molt, or they're about to molt. And one big sign is the abdomen size. You know, when you see a tarantula with a really big abdomen and they stop feeding, that's because they're full or they're going into pre-molt. You know, they don't need any more food. But do remember, it can also be due to overfeeding. And I'm big on not overfeeding my tarantulas, if I'm honest. You know, some people have had a moan at me for how long I actually go without feeding some adult tarantulas, and they can go a couple weeks without feeding. You don't need to be feeding them, you know, every day, every other day. They're not like normal pets. And with slings in particular, their abdomens will start to go dark, and you'll notice that they go shiny as well, and that's an indicator that they're going to molt. The tarantulas will become slower and more lethargic. The tarantula will start to burrow itself away, although this one has molted on top. And while we're talking about a tarantula molting on top, while this one hasn't done it, they usually lay like a web mat. And it's a really thick mat, and they usually molt on top of that. So that's another sign that they're going to molt soon. It's a bit like a hammock. Let's say it like that. And while we're on the topic of that, if you ever see a tarantula on its back while it's in its enclosure, don't think that it's dying. So tarantulas usually go on their back when they're molting. It is perfectly normal, and it's something that you shouldn't be worried about. But I have also seen tarantulas molt the other way. And we've seen this on this channel as well. So yeah, don't get worried if it doesn't molt the correct way either. But most of all, subadult and adult tarantulas can go weeks, months, and even years without feeding. But yeah, when it gets to about a year, you do start to worry. Tarantulas are really odd creatures, and what doesn't seem normal to us may seem normal to them. But there are some other factors you may want to take into account when it comes to the length of time. So the temperature and environment is a big thing. You know, making sure the tarantula has the correct temperature and humidity is vital, as it can cause stress, and that's the same with the way that you have the enclosure set up. I've known people to have enclosures with no hides, which is just basic husbandry in my opinion. A hide makes a spider feel safe. You know, it's a dark area for them to retreat. And while we're talking about hides, another question I get is, you know, my tarantula doesn't come out of its hide, it's burrowed itself in. You know, should I dig it up? No, don't ever dig your spider up. When I think back when I first started this hobby, I remember when my first tarantula dug itself away and I was panicking like mad. I was like, oh my God, it's in there, you know, can it breathe? Can it, you know, can it get out? It's like a mind's just collapsed. But yeah, don't worry, tarantulas normally burrow themselves away when they go inside their burrow and they're about to molt. You know, it's a layer of defence. If they burrow themselves away, they think that a predator is less likely to come along and grab them. But this is what I mean, like we all learn. We're all learning as we progress throughout this hobby. But anyway, without having basic husbandry skills and correct setups, this is going to cause your tarantulas much stress and will prolong a molt, or worst case, cause your tarantulas to pass. And another thing, whilst you see me using mainly, you know, like Morio worms, a key thing is to try different feeders. So this is something else I get asked. You know, my tarantula won't eat. I always ask, what feeders do you use? And they normally list one feeder. And I go, have you tried a different feeder? Sometimes it's a yes and sometimes it's a no. So while you see us just use mainly Morio worms, we do actually use different feeders. We use like Morio worms, mealworms, dubia roaches, locusts, and sometimes like red runners. And that is because we have some real fussy eaters in this room. Believe it or not, we have some that don't actually accept Morio worms. So we have to use different feeders for them. So yeah, a big tip, try different feeders, you'd be surprised. Without the correct setup, without the hide, without that humidity, it could cause your tarantula great stress. And that could be a reason why it's not eating and the abdomen's getting smaller and smaller. And last of all, does your tarantula have a water source? You know, your tarantulas can get hydration from food. And you know, like missing in the enclosures, which makes the web wet. But without regular check-in and maintenance, that water dish could play a vital part in their health. But saying that, not having a water dish is a bit of a controversial subject. Well, that was a big word there. And we may be a bit of a hypocrite here, because for those of you that watch us, you'd know that some of our communals don't actually have a water dish inside it. And then you could argue, you know, like with spiderlings, they can get moisture from the moss. But we start to learn all of that as we progress throughout the hobby. I just think a water dish in most enclosures is important in my opinion. And I get it, we don't have it in the communals. That's different, I've explained that before. But in general, all our enclosures, all back here, they have water dishes. But the main reason I actually wanted to do this video, and I keep losing track, is because this spider, it didn't have a huge abdomen, and you can see that from when we rehoused her. To be fair, it had a perfectly sized abdomen. It wasn't huge, wasn't overfed, but it didn't accept any more food. And the abdomen was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And if I'm honest, looking at it now, it doesn't actually look any different than what it does now. It looks a complete same size as, you know, when it molted. To be fair, it doesn't even look like it's got that much bigger, if I'm honest. But for me, when I see a tarantula's abdomen shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and it's not accepting food, I don't normally think pre-molt, if I'm honest. I think that there's something wrong with the enclosure. Now these are similar to the grammostola rosea, and I keep them all the same, if I'm honest. But that's what I mean. Tarantulas do weird things. And you know, I don't think it was the temperature, I don't think it was humidity. I just think it was one of them weird things, if I'm honest. I might be wrong though. I will say though, I will probably rehouse this girl again because, yeah, it's quite just a basic sort of setup. It's got the substrate, it's got a bit of moss in there. Could probably do with putting a bit more moss in here, if I'm honest, because where she's messed it all up, it's all got a bit mixed up. The back of her hide is a bit exposed, but she still has some darkness inside. But I think a nice new enclosure for her would be nice once she hardens up. So considering we've had this girl for over a year, I feel like now that she's molted, she might accept some food. So I'm not going to release this video until I get that feeding footage. That's it, I'm going to sit on it until we get it. And it's going to be interesting to see what feeder she accepts. I'm going to try Morio worm first, but if not, we go on to different feeders. But yeah, I'm not releasing this until we see that. So with me saying that, let's now have a look at this feeding footage. So I don't know if any of this made any sense, fingers crossed it did. The point of this video was the fact that she didn't molt for over a year, and it's a question I get asked quite a lot, you know, why isn't my tarantula eaten? They can go weeks, months, and even a year without eating. While we're talking about shrunken abdomens, another key thing to remember is a lot of new keepers, they get a tarantula, it matures out, they don't actually know that, and then they're like, oh, my tarantula's not eating. You know, the abdomen's getting smaller and smaller. Mature males, when they mature, they'll eat for a little bit, and then that will be it. They'll stop eating, and they're just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker until they pass. But honestly, guys, just make sure you have the basic husbandry when it comes to tarantulas. Always make sure they have a hide, they have a water source, and you know, there's a bit of moss in there. Do some research on the species. You know, is it more moisture dependent than others? Just get them little facts sorted. But yeah, it's quite straightforward from there. If there's any questions, guys, feel free to drop it down in the comments and I will answer your questions. But yeah, stay tuned for this female, because we are going to re-house her. We're going to spruce up her enclosure, make it a bit more appropriate for her. But I guess we should wrap the video up here, guys. So if you could like, comment and share, that would be absolutely great. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below and hit that bell icon so you're notified of when we upload next. Don't forget, down in the description, the link for our link tree. It's got all our social medias on there. It'd be greatly appreciated if you go check that out. Don't forget, guys, if you want to get some enclosures from Arachnospace, from Tarantula Crib ones here in the UK, make sure you go use the affiliate code Grindler10, get yourself 10% off, and it helps support this channel as well. But Mr. Grindler's done here, Mrs. Grindler's not here, so I'll say bye on her behalf, and I'll say bye from all our creatures. Have a great week, guys. You'll deserve it. Peace.